And here now is a clip from the debate on legalizing marijuana between State Senator Joe Gruters, who supports Amendment 3, and Dr. Jessica Spencer, who opposes it.
My biggest concern is the fact that it is a constitutional amendment. We can't legislate our way out of the issues and the problems that we see. It is absolutely corporate greed. It is not for personal and just for individuals. This is corporate greed. Let me
bring Joe. And Joe, I want to hear your arguments for it, but I do, to her point, there are currently, well, I checked, 883,000 medical marijuana patients. There's roughly 650 licensed dispensaries for medical marijuana. It seems that if someone wants to find a way to get medical marijuana, they can. Why do we need to broaden it to make it for recreational marijuana as well?
Well, you just hit the point that I was going to make. We have 850,000 people, almost a million people that use the medical marijuana license card right now. There's another almost 2 million people that use marijuana through illicit markets, and that's the problem. That's what this debate's all about. It's about safety. It's about making sure that people could have access to a safe product. And the more, if we pass this, it's safety, it's decriminalization. 16,000 people were arrested last year here in the state of Florida on minor possession of marijuana. It's long overdue that we get rid of that. And ultimately, as the legislature, we will control the time, place, and manner that this passes. And so for me, but ultimately, it's about if you believe at home that if you know somebody that uses marijuana, and then if you know somebody that uses marijuana outside of the medical dispensaries, they can get arrested, and they may be taking a substance, a product that has laced with fentanyl or some other drug, and people are dying.
So Jessica, let's touch on that point.
Sure.
Isn't it better for people to be able to buy marijuana from a licensed dispensary that they may know where it came from, rather than buy it from a friend of a friend who has a guy who sells some dope?
You would certainly think so, but unfortunately in the states that have recreational marijuana, we do not see the black market going away. We actually see it flourishing, because people are going to seek out the less expensive option. You cannot make marijuana more safe.
Go ahead. And just to point that, Colorado, where they passed it, and it's talked about a lot, 99% of the product that's purchased is through the regulated legal market.
I don't know where Joe is getting the 99% from, because if you look at the Rocky Mountain HIDTA report, people are getting quite a bit of marijuana from the black market. I can imagine that's not being reported.
Well, you can find the full debates on the sheriff's race and Amendment 3 at cbsmiami.com. Which brings us to Amendment 4, which would restore a woman's right to have an abortion up until viability, which medically is considered around 24 weeks. According to its supporters, it would return Florida to where we were before the Supreme Court struck down Roe. To pass, the amendment requires 60% approval. 10 states have abortion measures on their ballots this year, but only Florida requires a 60% threshold. So as you can see, the supporters already have a high bar to reach, and they're not complaining about that. But what they are upset about is how the governor, in their opinion, is abusing his power to try and defeat the amendment. Let me give you an example. He sent his recently created election police force to the homes of people who signed the Amendment 4 petition, questioning if they actually did sign it. Now, just to be clear, supporters of Amendment 4 gathered nearly 1 million signatures, far more than the 890,000 required to get on the ballot. And those petitions have already been reviewed and certified by supervisors of elections across the state. And yet DeSantis released a report this week suggesting widespread fraud, even though the time to challenge these petitions has long since passed. In fact, what DeSantis is doing is unprecedented. We have never seen a governor launch a criminal investigation into a ballot measure, and he is doing it while people are voting. And that may well be the reason he's doing it, to throw mud on the amendment, hoping it will turn off just enough voters to keep the amendment from reaching that 60% threshold. But that's not everything DeSantis is doing. He has also been using taxpayer money to run ads through the State Department of Health attacking the amendment. And it's not just Amendment 4. He has also used taxpayer money to attack Amendment 3. Even State Senator Joe Gruters, the former chair of the Republican Party of Florida, accuses DeSantis of using taxpayer money to spread propaganda about the two amendments.
Well, I'll say the Governor DeSantis, I think he's doing a great job as governor, but no matter where I personally stand on issues, I don't think we should use public tax dollars on propaganda, and that's what I think this is. I think it sets a bad precedent for administrations moving forward, and we should never use, listen, we live in a democracy at the end of the day. We should never spend tax dollars on political ads.
So you do think this is propaganda?
I do.
And if that's not enough, the governor has gone so far as to send television stations across the state letters threatening criminal prosecution against stations that run certain ads in support of Amendment 4. Let me say that again. He has threatened to criminally prosecute television stations that run certain ads in support of Amendment 4. DeSantis' actions are so unprecedented, there's that word again, that the chair of the Federal Communications Commission issued a statement that said, "The right of broadcasters to speak freely is rooted in the First Amendment. Threats against broadcast stations for airing content that conflicts with the government's views are dangerous and undermine the fundamental principle of free speech." And late Thursday, a federal judge in Tallahassee issued a restraining order against DeSantis and the Department of Health, preventing them from taking any action against TV stations, saying it was a clear violation of the, quote, "the bedrock principle that the government cannot threaten third parties with legal sanctions to censor speech it disfavors." The judge went on to write, "To keep it simple for the state of Florida, it's the First Amendment, stupid." So what does this all mean? Well, it means that the power is still in your hands. And despite the best efforts of the governor, whether it's to use taxpayer money to spread propaganda, or use state police to question and possibly intimidate voters, or threaten TV stations with prosecution, the voters will ultimately decide Amendment 4. And now, all you have to do is go vote. If you support the amendment, vote for it. If you oppose it, vote against it. That's just that simple. Now, when we return, we will tell the story of one young woman forced to leave the state to get an abortion. Stay with us.